And even amid all of this that's happening, we caught up with MR Sivaraman a while ago, the former Director General for Civil Aviation and Revenue Secretary, trying to understand what the situation really is. What does this mean for the Indian civil aviation? Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. My first question to you: with what is happening in the Indian civil aviation sector, whether it be Vistara first, now the Air India Express, um, is this a wrong messaging that is going out? Is this a big challenge for the civil aviation sector?
No, it doesn't look good for India itself, because it's a tourist season and a lot of people may be coming here from all over the world. And if this kind of a strike happens, they will think very poorly of our country, particularly the management of the aviation sector, both by the private sector as well as by the government. And I'm really surprised that Tatas, who manage hundreds of thousands of employees in all their enterprises all over the world, they have not been able to settle down as far as Air India is concerned or their other airlines are concerned. I strongly feel this is because the Tata management may not be, really taking the advice of a good board of directors.
All right. But when we listen to this mass sick leaves being used as a protest tool repeatedly so over the last 2 years, several times, what is this? Are these unusual circumstances, extraordinary circumstances, or is this a norm?
No, the policy does not allow it at all, because this has happened very frequently in the Indian Airlines, very frequently in the Air India also. And I used to call the pilots and I used to tell them, this is shameful on your part to do this. And at that time, in those days, there were a lot of people who were from the Army, Navy, and the Air Force joining the Air India and Indian Airlines. I used to call them and give them a dressing down. Aren't you ashamed? You call yourself captain, you call yourself squadron leader, that you are prepared to die for the country. Now you're making the people suffer. Of course, many of them immediately gave up and they said, no, we will fly the aircraft. Without any hesitation, they used to say that to me. But here again, similarly, the pilots and the cabin crew association should be addressed by the DGC and tell them, please don't do this, because you're making the people suffer, you're making the country suffer. What will people think who are planning to come to India and fly through these airlines, traveling to various tourist places? They won't be able to do so. They would have been cancelling the tickets. It brings bad name to the country. Therefore, the DGCA can definitely intervene in this matter using his good offices as a regulatory authority, even though he may not have the powers, but still he has the personality and the status to intervene in the matter.
DGCA has sought a response in this particular case. The response, of course, is awaited. But is there a larger problem that we are really looking at in the civil aviation sector in India?
No, I don't think so, because earlier there were some problems with the DGCA. But later on, I think DGCA has made a lot of amendments and they have made changes also into the system, whereby they have laid down the proper guidelines as to the flight time duty limitations, both for the cabin crew as well as the pilots. Of course, I know that they issued some kind of a guideline and they withdrew it. I hope they have brought into force those rules which they introduced after consultations and all. Now, as far as the DGCA is concerned, they are a regulatory authority. They frame the rules. They have to ensure that the rules relating to the flight time limitations of the pilots and the cabin crew are properly observed. If there is any failure on the part of the airlines, they can always pull up the airlines and they can also fine them. In this particular case, because a number of complaints, as you also mentioned, that they are made to the chairman of the airlines, that these are the problems, the DGCA, of course, can ask the airlines to inform them as to what action they have taken with regard to the complaints made by the staff, both by the pilots as well as the cabin crew. It is a responsibility of the DGCA. There is an officer. There is also a directorate of flight inspection and flight safety. And the director's responsibility as well as the DG's responsibility is to call the management, at least one senior person from the airlines, and ask them what happened to all these complaints. What have you done with those complaints? What are reasonable and what are unreasonable? Of course, both know that there may be certain things which are reasonable and certain things unreasonable. They could have come to a settlement. It appears there is a widening gulf between the management of the airlines and the cabin crew and the flight crew.
Okay, is there a precedence to what we are seeing? Is this a regular merger issue really, or is there a precedence that we are looking at?
It's not extraordinary. This kind of problem arose when the Indian Airlines and Air India merged. There were a lot of problems in regard to that. Similarly, when the National Airport Authority and Airport Authority of India merged, it took them 10 years. National Airport Authority and Airport Authority of India to merge the crew, so they merge the staff, because they were working on different pay scales, they were working on different allowances to bring them together on some kind of a normality. They took it, very seriously, but it took them a long time.
All right. Now, what is the way forward? Do you see a way forward in this particular case?
See, I see a way forward very easily in this manner. For example, either the management of the airlines, they come down to reality and they have a neutral observer in front of whom they can settle this disputes or the differences in approaches between the management and the airlines. And in the meanwhile, the DGCA can ask the flight crew and the cabin crew that they should carry on with their flights, assuring them that their difficulties and problems would be sorted out within a given time frame. The flyers, the passengers should not be allowed to suffer because of this. It can be easily solved. I don't see any difficulty in solving it, provided the Tatas come down also to some extent and they say, yes, we are prepared to discuss this matter.
Can the DGCA take any particular step in this particular case? I mean, can it be assertive in this particular case?
Center, see, by law, the center cannot do anything, but the DGCA can certainly intervene in the matter because it affects the passengers. And he has a responsibility to take care of the interests of the passengers according to the Aircraft Act and Manual. Interfere. He can always tell them, please settle this matter within so many days. And in the meanwhile, he can call the cabin crew and the flight crew and request them, please operate the flights. I take the responsibility.
Right. We just hope that the talks that are underway right now, as we are being told, told by our sources, just works out in the best way. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us and giving us these insights.